Welcome to the show. One of the things I always make an effort to do is just call things what they are, or at least what I believe them to be. If you disagree with me, then you tell me, and then we sort of figure it out. One of the terms that at this point I believe has to be used with what is happening in the country is that there is an attempt by the current administration to create a police state and a surveillance state, both to degrees we have not seen in the United States for a very long time. We also have to consider the sort of hypocrisy or double standard of the reality that what the MAGA and Republicans warned us about previously that Democrats would do is what they themselves are doing now. Democrats are going to put people in camps. Well, Trump built the camps and he's putting people there. Democrats are going to surveil you through technological means. Well, that's what the new digital health surveillance apparatus of Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is doing. And Democrats are going to create a police and surveillance state. Well, Donald Trump is now doing that. Donald Trump is now doing what his allies used to warn, erasing local control, militarizing our streets, weaponizing personal medical data. Trump is now doing it, even though the people who support him told us, if you vote for Democrats, they are going to do this. So let's walk it through. We talked earlier this week about Trump declaring a crime emergency in Washington, D.C., crimes at nearly a 30-year low. Crime in D.C. specifically, the murder rate down 35% last year, down 26% this year, but it doesn't matter. He's federalizing the D.C. police, unleashing the National Guard, overriding the city's elected leadership. He did it in Los Angeles, ignoring Mayor Karen Bass and Governor Gavin Newsom. And what Trump is also doing in service of this goal is manipulating outdated statistics to terrify people. It is fear-based. You can't even call it fear-based governance. It is fear-based authoritarianism. Last year, murders fell 32%. Armed carjackings down 53%. Violent crime continues down by an additional 26%. But none of that stopped Trump from portraying Washington, D.C. as this dystopian, lawless war zone that you would expect in, sci-fi movies. And he created a public relations spectacle with it. And far worse than that, arguably, is that he's creating a precedent for even more of these abuses in other cities, which he has openly said he wants to do. Now, think back to people like Sean Hannity on Fox News, Tucker Carlson, formerly of Fox News, Glenn Beck, these types of people who, along with half of the Republican Party, were warning Barack Obama in 2008 is going to build the deep state to crush your freedom. Okay, he didn't do it, but Barack Obama in 2012, if you reelect him, is building a deep state to crush your freedom. And okay, he didn't do it. If you vote Biden in 2020, Biden's going to do it. And he didn't do it. But what they used to say would be tyrannical for the left to do, they are now doing. And of course, they love to weaponize these terms, right? When the FBI legally served a search warrant at Mar-a-Lago, it was the Gestapo, they like to say. Or when there were COVID guidelines, this was a tyrannical government lockdown. But Trump has now become what they claim to fear. And when you look at history, this hypocrisy runs really deep. Presidents have deployed troops domestically before. I'm not going to go through the full list because we talked about it on Monday. We talked about it on Tuesday. But the point here is we have seen this anecdotally, and it has been in extenuating circumstances where the government was using those resources to try to defend rights, not to trample them. Now, you could still disagree with it, right? There is not one always correct view on everything. There is room for interpretation in some of these areas. You could say, okay, when this was done previously, whether it was Little Rock or whether it was Kent State and Detroit riots or Rodney King, you could say the reason really was to maintain law and order. The reason really was to defend rights. But I'm still against it. I'm just against the militarization, militarization of local law enforcement, the federalization. I'm just against it on principle. Fine, we can talk about that. But the difference here is that we are seeing military gear and surveillance technology and stuff often reserved for war zones. It's being used domestically. And we are going in a direction where this stuff is not being used to preserve rights. It's being used to suppress rights and to suppress and skip and circumvent due process. So the next logical steps, these aren't necessarily predictions, but this is sort of like we're clearly building to something here, would be spy aircraft, spy drones, surveillance drones used domestically, cell tower spoofers and stingrays, AI-driven facial recognition that can look at how you walk, your gait, GAIT, and voice stress and emotional state and trigger responses based on that. And some of this stuff is already sort of starting to be deployed. So if municipalities say we're going to ban some of these things, it will probably be useless because one of the sort of characteristics of federalized forces is they don't answer to civilian review. That's kind of the whole point of them. And really, this is not about crime. What we are seeing are surveillance tools and federalized police as a protest monitoring machine. Donald Trump's extraordinarily thin skin makes him get wildly triggered whenever people protest. And so these are protest suppression techniques and technologies. ICE is already using facial recognition at demonstrations. And that gets us to the sort of broader future of this police state. When you can justify emergencies, a permanent emergency, you can use that to tag, track, and treat as security threats journalists, activists, political opponents, protesters simply exercising their right to free speech. And you do it not because they've broken the law, but because you go, look, we've got this emergency. This is not, things aren't normal. Normally, we would respect the press, and normally we would respect people's right to assemble and protest and demand a redress of grievances. But look, we've got an emergency. Of course, an emergency Trump declared based on misstatements or ignoring what the data is. So that's what's going on. It's a police state that is building. We do have the health front. We covered this a couple of weeks ago, but this new medical surveillance thing, Donald Trump and the HHS Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., they're rolling out this wave of digital health surveillance. And this is the stuff that Republicans warned us about. Oh, Bill Gates is going to do this and that. Biden's going to do this and that. But what they're doing is they are going to sort of combine data from wearables, apps, AI-powered health scoring. It's all being pitched as being for wellness, but then you can cross-reference that with your movements and your social media and who knows what else. So this is the very dark turn that they warned us about. And the danger is that these measures often never go away. We learned after 9/11, some of us are old enough to remember, when the Patriot Act turned emergency surveillance because of this unique thing that happened on September 11th of 2001, it sort of became a permanent fixture of American life. And once you put in place the infrastructure, the cameras, the databases, the biometric scanners, you're going to use them. And you can always point to some pseudo crisis to say, we need to keep doing it for this. So you've got a temporary emergency, a data feed, a precedent, but you keep adding. We've got another data feed now. We've got another temporary emergency. And this is how police states have been built historically. Trump is building one. He's doing it in plain sight. Most of his supporters are justifying it by saying, no, we are against this stuff. And if Democrats had done it, which of course they had no plan to, it would have been bad. But when Trump is doing it, it's for all the right reasons. It is cult mentality. It is grifter mentality. And speaking of grifting, that's exactly what we're going to talk about next.